Welcome back to the show, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
If this is your first time joining us, this is the Blue Collar Business Podcast. It's a podcast about starting your own service business. Me and Grant are twin brothers living outside of Phoenix, Arizona. And we both started our businesses somewhat recently. I started my business maybe 3 years ago now. And when I first started my first year, I made $55,000. I was working 30 hours a week because I was doing school and other things, and it was great for me. Like, I was really happy with how much money I made. It was way easier than I thought to start up my business. So yeah, we just want to encourage other people to do the same because it's totally possible, and it's really freeing, and it's really motivating. So we're here to encourage you. If you're thinking about it, if you have skills, then start your own business. Don't be afraid of it.
Wow, 3 years. I didn't know you've been doing that long.
I think that's right. I'm pretty sure I started it in like 2021. Yeah, so
right.
I guess it has been 3 years.
I just realized like I've been almost doing it for a full year now.
Yeah, nice work.
Yeah.
Okay, so we usually start the show talking about what we've been working on the past week. It's been a couple weeks since we did the show, so I think
That's true.
At least for me, I've done a lot of projects, and I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
So there's probably a lot to talk about. So let's just focus on some of the highlights. Also, first, I need to bring this up. On my way here, I got this coffee from Quick Trip.
Yeah.
And I realized when I was like 5 minutes from your house that I didn't pay for it. I just walked in, got my coffee, and left.
Really?
And I didn't even think about it until I was like 5 minutes from your house. So what do you think I should do about this? I feel a little guilty.
I feel like you've given them enough money. It seems like you go there a lot. So
I did have that thought.
They'll let that one slide.
Well, I was thinking maybe next time I go in, I'll just be like, look, this is going to sound weird, but I stole a coffee last week. So just add it to my check.
It's funny. You just didn't even think about it.
It was the
Walked
first time
away.
I've done that. It was kind of weird. I felt a little embarrassed. So what have you been working on this week, Grant?
Actually, I finished up a painting job. I'm painting a kitchen island.
Okay.
So I was painting the cabinet doors.
Oh, how'd that go? That's kind of rough.
Yeah, it took a while. I decided to paint them like in my garage, and I mean it worked. It was nice because I decided to like kind of work at night, so it wasn't as hot. Because my garage gets hot, but also my garage is pretty small, so I had like 26 of them. So I had limited
by
space.
hand, or did you spray it?
I sprayed it, so I like made this little spraying boost out of plastic.
Well, you had 26? I thought you were just painting an island. How big is this island?
Oh, it's massive. Then there's two of them. Yeah,
Holy cow.
it's a nice,
big time house.
Nice house. The ceiling in their kitchen, like / family room area, is. Well, actually, I was trying to measure it for something. I think it was 26 feet.
Woo!
It's like a
That is
cathedral
nice.
on that thing.
Jeez. Don't see that every day.
Yeah, so there's a lot of doors. So
Funny how
I had to paint both
you
sides.
can measure your wealth by the size of your ceiling.
Yeah. And this was a big one.
At least in Arizona.
Anyway, it went all right. It just took a long time. And my garage is small, so I had to like set them out to dry, and I could only like do so many at a time.
When I've painted cabinets, I've done it both ways. Sometimes I keep the doors on and I'll paint it, and sometimes I'll take the doors off and I paint it. And I find usually doors off is a little more efficient. Did you think that was true when you did it?
Well, I don't know. I wanted to spray them, so I feel like that was the only way I could do it. If I sprayed them, it was like I had to take them off.
Yeah, it's a real pain in the neck doing cabinets.
Yeah, it is.
Do you think you'll ever do it again?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of like using the paint sprayer.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
Yeah, but it's also very messy and it takes a while. So
you didn't borrow mine. Did you get your own?
Oh yeah, I did. I bought my own.
Oh, look at you.
Yep.
Is it nicer than mine? Were you sick of mine?
There's like the version you bought and then like one up. I bought that one.
Why?
I don't know. I wanted
to flex on me.
It just said it was like a little bit better, and yours had some problems pumping, so I just decided. Like yours worked, but I just wanted to go up a little bit more.
Well, we're talking about cutting costs today, so that's relevant, I guess. I
Yeah.
chose the cheaper option.
Yeah, I
And
guess I wasn't
it's-
cutting costs there. I spent
Yeah.
an extra like 60, $70.
Oh my goodness, not worth it, folks. All right. I've been working. If there's anything else, then we can circle back to that you've been working on.
Oh,
But-
actually,
'cause
you
we
know,
have-
it just came to mind cutting costs though. That paint sprayer, I I initially bought it at Home Depot,
yeah.
and after I bought it, I looked on Amazon and there's one for about $60 cheaper. So I bought that one and then returned the other one. So cut a little bit off the price.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Did you open it, or was it still in the box?
Oh, I had opened it and then I was like, yeah, I just checked online to see if it was actually cheaper. I just assumed it would be like the same price, but it was like a pretty good amount less.
That is kind of strange that it was so much cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point though. Like you always got to check if you're going to buy like an expensive tool. Check everywhere, especially Amazon.
Right.
Like I've ended up buying a lot of tools on Amazon when I used to just buy them at Home Depot.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're cheaper. This week I've been doing a lot. Like I said, it's been 2 weeks since we recorded, so I've spent a lot of time, and I've done a lot of like smaller jobs. I haven't done like painting cabinets. That's going to take you several days, so
Yeah.
that's something that's significant. But I've done a lot of little stuff. I worked for some guy that I've worked for many times, and he's selling his house, so he wanted me to come fix up a few things to get it ready for sale. And a lot of drywall things. He wanted me to add a couple can lights in the ceiling because he thought it would make the room look nicer because of more lighting. So I did stuff like that, where I added a few can lights. And that was probably the hardest part. I think I also learned that I really, really, really hate working in homes that have fiberglass insulation.
Oh,
Which is most homes. It's so
Oh,
bad.
we were doing the can lights and there was insulation
Yeah,
in
and
the
I was
ceiling.
fishing around in there for wires.
Yeah.
And I didn't put like long sleeves on or anything on my arms, and my arms were itchy for like 2 weeks.
Oh, it's so annoying. Yeah.
It was awful.
And I almost like, I think it would be better, and I've done this a couple times where I like get a long sleeve shirt and then like put a glove on and like wrap tape around the seam.
I should have done that.
Yeah, but I like almost never do because it takes a little bit and it's like, it can't be that bad. But I forget how like irritating it is to the skin.
It was so bad.
it's
I was like really annoyed about it. I threw my shirt in the trash because it was covered
Really?
in fiberglass. It was like a shirt that I liked. I just threw it away.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was really annoying. Like my arms, I could still feel it a little bit. So just keep that in mind if you're working with fiberglass insulation. It's the pink stuff that comes in rolls. That stuff will get you if you're not careful. It really, if it gets on your skin, it's really annoying. So I did that, but that job I made decent money. I did a lot of things. So I was there for like 3 or 4 days.
Oh, nice.
I ended up, I forget what my final paycheck was, but I calculated I ended up making like 60 an hour, I think.
Nice.
And part of that I actually worked. Well, I'll get into that later. But yeah, 60 an hour. And then I did a few other jobs, changed out a toilet, and I hung a TV and some drywall work for somebody else and some painting.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, another job I did, I was, like I said, hung a TV and did some drywall. And this guy listens to the show, and he gave me a $250 tip.
Whoa.
Which I think was just a bribe for me to mention him on the show.
Oh.
Because it was like
Really?
exorbitant. I was like, what is this?
Wow.
But that was nice.
That is very nice.
So I went from like $60 an hour to like $100. So thank you, Josh.
He gets the name drop.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else that you worked on that's significant?
Oh, I just worked on my pool pump. I finally got it working yesterday.
Nice.
I did that. Yeah, I was working on it like just on my free time this week, and I this is a thing that should be obvious, but I didn't. Well, the guy at the pool store gave me the wrong one, but I should be able to read the label, and it like wasn't made for the like voltage that my pump had, so it just was never going to work. And I had it all set up and tried to use it, and it just wouldn't work. The wires were overheating, and I just could not figure out what was going on. And then I read the side of it, and it's like, it's 230 volts, and
That's so annoying.
my wires are only 115. So it was just so dumb. It was such a waste of time because I just didn't read it.
How mad were you when that happened?
I was just really disappointed. It's like, what a joke.
Yeah, that's one of those times when you can't even be mad. It's just so like sad.
Like, I wanted to be mad at the guy for giving me the wrong one, but it was like, it was so easy. It was just on the side. I could have easily read it.
Yeah.
Any point that I was installing it, and I did not. So
That's a bummer.
yeah. But luckily, I got it returned and got a new one. So now it's working.
Mom told me you bought a sewing machine. Is that true?
I did. I haven't used it yet.
Why in the world did you buy a sewing machine? Did you buy it to like patch up jeans and stuff?
Yes. I've torn out the crotch of so many beloved jeans.
Oh my gosh. Don't you get them at Goodwill?
Oh yeah, I mean they're junk jeans, but there's it's hard to find a good pair of jeans. Eventually,
I guess that's true.
Once you wear them for a while, you start to like. They've been like go-to jeans for like when I'm working, and then now they're gone.
Mom told me that you bought that, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, that's not that weird buying like a sewing set to patch up some clothes."
Yeah.
She's like, "No, like a sewing machine, like over $100." I'm
Yeah,
like, "What is he
It's
thinking?
like $120.
You're never gonna use that.
I
You can use it 2 times."
I plan on using it, but
How much was it? Over $100
it's 130.
to save you like $10 jeans that you broke.
Yeah, I mean nice jeans.
Just an example. This is another bad example for our cutting costs show.
Yeah. But it's a write-off. I'm going to use it for my business.
All right. You scoundrel. Wow. All right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing I wanted to mention before we get into the show. I just thought this was funny. I was working on somebody's toilet, and I got it all done. I got it installed, and then I was testing it before I put like some caulk around the edge of it. And I sat back to like pull the handle just to see how it goes, and then it was done, and I was like, all right, no leaks, we're good. And I was sitting, I didn't notice, but I was sitting on my work bag, and I hear this noise that sounded like the toilet was still running.
Yeah.
Like it was still spilling water. I was like, that's so weird. I wasn't doing that before I installed it. I wonder what's wrong. And it wouldn't stop. And then I got up and it stopped. I was like, oh, weird. And I turned around and I realized I was sitting on my can of WD-40 and it was just spraying everywhere. And that was the noise.
What you thought was running water was just spraying WD-40.
Just grease all over the bathroom, all over my clothes, all over my work bag. Like, what have I done? That was unfortunate this week, but I thought it was funny. So let's get into the meat of the episode. Like I said, we're talking about cutting costs in your business this week. So just generally, Grant, what are some principles that you've learned or some wisdom that you can give some of our listeners about cutting costs?
Yeah, just don't buy stuff you don't need, like a sewing machine.
That's a good lesson.
Probably a good start. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I do okay at this. Like most of the tools I've got like haven't been super expensive. Like I'll do a little bit of research and find a good one that's going to last. And like most of my tools have lasted almost the whole time I've had them, which has been like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, sometimes it's worth investing in a nice tool because then you don't ever have to buy it again.
Yeah. So I think that's a good way to just do some research and make sure you get the right stuff. That's worth the price. It might be a little bit more if it's a nicer one. Yeah, and I just try not to buy tools that I don't need. I have done that, but like I bought this carpet thing that like stretches out the carpet.
Oh yeah, I've used one of those.
I was like trying to do this one carpet job one time, and that thing was kind of expensive, and I've used it once, and it just sits in a bucket in my garage, and I've never touched it again. So
Probably never will.
yeah, it's like I shouldn't have bought.
You
that.
probably learned like I did when I did one carpet job that I'm never doing this again too.
Yeah, it's actually very difficult.
Yeah.
I had no idea how tough carpet was to do.
Yeah, I always assumed that it was easy because like, oh, it's just like a rug.
Yeah.
Like, how hard is that to install? You just cut the edges, but it's actually very challenging.
Yeah,
to
trying
get
to attach it
flat
to those,
and not
like-
have like bumps in it.
Yeah, it was not easy. So I never even wanted to do any carpet work again. So it just, stuff like that. I should maybe do some more research before I waste money on a tool that I'm never going to use. So,
Props to our carpet guys out there. I don't know how they do it.
yeah, they're good. They're seriously smart guys.
Well, so that was some things you bought, some tools that you didn't need. What are some tools that you bought that you did need that have like really served you that maybe you didn't know that you would need?
I mean, for me, I spent like a good amount of money on a really nice miter saw.
Oh yeah.
And like that thing is really useful to have. It has like a lot of different angles, like more than a normal miter saw, or not a normal one, but just a cheap one.
Didn't you get that recently?
I got it a few years ago.
Oh. Okay.
But it's been like, yeah, it was expensive, but it's been totally worth it. It just made things a lot easier working with that thing rather than like a cheaper one that can't do as much. And yeah, it's a really good tool.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that sometimes cutting costs does involve buying nice things. Like does involve buying tools that are going to serve you really well and save you time. This week I actually bought a stud finder and I bought a wire tracer. I had never bought a stud finder because you told me they don't work, and they totally work. I don't know what you're talking about. I just believed you for the last 4 years. I think
the problem is like I only ever had cheap ones, and the cheap ones do not work.
Well, I bought a nicer one, and I was like, this works perfect. What is Grant talking about?
I still run into issues with like middle of the road stud finders that they can't do well on insulated walls.
Oh, insulated walls. Well, I didn't have to do that.
They struggle with that. But yeah, they do work. You don't like the old like 18 gauge nail and a hammer?
It's so annoying. I was doing that for years.
For the tap? You don't tap the wall?
I do tap a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of tapping, this is a side note, but when me and Grant were living together at our parents' house when we were younger, but we were still old enough to be working.
Yeah.
There was one night, this was like 3 a.m. I'm asleep, and I hear this knocking on the wall. And it just doesn't stop. And then I realize Grant is asleep, and he's searching for studs in his wall right now. Like he was unconscious, and he was searching for studs, like tapping on the wall, which is what he does at work. He does it all the time. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. I was like, the shared wall that we had, he was just tapping on it, searching for studs.
That's so weird. I was just a workaholic back then, I guess.
You were, yeah. You never stopped. No breaks, even in your subconscious. All right, so, yeah, that was a side note. But I got a wire tracer this week. So it's like
that?
You put it on like wires that you're like if you want to find, if you have a switch that goes to like a light in your ceiling, and you need to find the wire like at another place in between, you can like attach it to the wires at the switch box, and then it'll send a small current. This is when you turn the power off, and then it'll send a small current through the wires that you can trace with another device, and then it will show you where it is under this drywall.
Oh,
super
really?
cool. Yeah, it was like $30.
Whoa, that's so cool.
It was so handy. So like that, I'm gonna use for all forever, and it'll be so helpful because I'm always looking for wires, and I'm like, I don't know where it is. But yeah, that was super helpful.
Wow, I don't know how I didn't know about those things. That's super cool.
I didn't either. The person I was working for, he actually bought it for me because he's like, yeah, let's just buy a wire tracer. I think it'll save you some time. I was like, yeah, I don't have one of those. I've never even used one. He's like, yeah, I'll buy it. I was like, okay. So he bought it for me.
Wow, that's great.
And it really did save us a lot of time. So that was cool.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that.
The next thing I want to talk about is opportunity costs. So if you understand what that is, it's like what it costs you to do one thing, and like you're missing out on something else. So like, for example, when we go to Home Depot all the time. Like when we're spending an hour a day at Home Depot, we're missing out on an hour of work that we could do. That's an opportunity cost. So I think that is probably, at least for me, one of my biggest things that I could cut down on is opportunity costs, especially stuff like that. Like when I'm at Home Depot, I think I mentioned this on the last episode where I was listening to this podcast of another handyman, and he mentioned how one of his biggest costs that he didn't realize was going to Home Depot all the time. And he did it
does take a long time.
And I was like, yeah, he's totally right. Like that has some like monetary value to it. Like if we do that every day, that adds up and missed time that you could be working.
Yeah, well, I just don't really how do you avoid that? I feel like every time I go to Home Depot, it's like I need something.
Well, I've actually started the last few weeks adding a little bit more inventory to my car.
Oh, okay.
So like, I have 10 like bottles of caulking in my car, so I don't have to like. I never run out of it, so I'm not like anytime I have to stop at Home Depot, I'll get extra stuff, so that I don't end up at a job and I'm like, oh, I need to go get caulk. I have to run to Home Depot, like stuff like that. Like that is avoidable.
That's good. I do need to do that because just with caulking as an example.
Yeah.
I always buy the same caulking and they only sell it at Lowe's.
Oh, okay.
It's a big stretch. You use that?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. You recommended it.
Yeah, it's like the best stuff. So that's the only stuff I buy, but they only sell at Lowe's. So sometimes I'll have to like make a run to Home Depot and Lowe's because like they have different stuff.
That'll kill you.
Just like that is a huge waste.
But
of time.
that maybe next
So
week I buy like
need,
10 of them.
Yeah, I think I just need to buy a whole bunch of them at Lowe's, and then I won't have to make 2 trips.
So I've started doing that. I also just bought a bunch of toilet wax rings, and
yeah.
I keep those in my house because I used to keep them in my car and then they would melt.
They're melting. Yeah.
Because it gets so dang hot here. So I'm like, all right, that's not an option. But it still is nice to have them so I don't have to just run to the store. Because I was finding that every time I did a toilet job, I'd have to run to Home Depot and get them. Like no matter what I was doing, I'm like, this is just not worth my time.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. I guess I don't really keep that much of an inventory. I just keep like a pretty good amount of like screws and nails and stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
have
good.
That much other stuff.
Yeah, I think other stuff that I have is like plumbing stuff, like angle valves and maybe some, I don't know what you call whatever goes from the angle valve to the sink.
Oh, like the supply line. Or
yeah, supply line. Like I have several of those, like stuff like that I use pretty often.
Yeah.
Just have a lot of them in my car, and then if I'm running low, I just get them at Home Depot when I have to go. That way, I'm not needing to go to Home Depot when I don't actually.
Right.
When I shouldn't need to.
Do you find yourself like overbuying and then returning extra? I feel like that's something I do, and it kind of helps. It kind of avoids unnecessary trips if I don't have enough stuff.
Oh, overbuying what?
Like anything. Like if I just let's say I don't know. Like the last time it was like paint, or no, it wasn't paint. It was like polyurethane.
Yeah.
Like just a clear coat stuff. And I just overbought like too many cans. Like I knew I wouldn't need that much, but just in case I used like an extra gallon, then I had it.
Yeah, that's smart. Then you wouldn't have to run back, and then you could just return it whenever you do have to go to Home
I just
Depot.
return it. I mean, you can't do that with like pre-mixed paint or mixed paint, but
yeah,
stuff that's already pre-made is I don't know. I find myself doing that a lot. I think it definitely helps.
That's a good tip. Yeah. Another thing about opportunity cost is being organized. I noticed that my car was like, the first year I was doing stuff, my car was just absolutely a disaster every day I was working.
Yeah.
And I would spend so much time trying to find stuff in my car. It would like take me a good chunk out of my day just trying to find a washer.
Right.
And I was like, I think I need to be a little more organized so I'm saving time when I was just sitting outside my car searching for stuff.
Right.
So that has really helped, and just having a system of keeping everything in a good place that I know where it's going to be.
I like worked on it like every couple months. I'll like reorganize things. So like, okay, I tend to use these things very often, so I'll keep those like at the ready, and other stuff and some other like tub or something that's for me, it's just like I keep it further in my truck, so I don't have to like get it in my truck and like go fish it out. The other stuff I can just grab easily. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just right at the front of your truck.
Yep. But I mean, small stuff like that does help. It saves time.
Yeah, and like a few minutes here and there every day, that adds up. Mm-hmm. Like an hour at Home Depot every day doesn't seem like a lot when you look at it at one day, but if you look at it over a month, like that's a lot of your time that's wasted.
Yeah.
Another thing is buying tools used. I started doing that. I actually, I mentioned that I had worked for somebody and then they paid me in
the
shop vac.
Yeah.
I actually did that again this last week, where
nice.
I worked for somebody. It was the guy I was working with the insulation and all. And he had a bunch of tools, like he was moving, and so he was trying to get rid of his stuff because he was downsizing. He's like, "You want any of my tools?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take them, and then I'll put that as part of your payment for my work." I was like, that sounds great. And so
Yeah, that's cool.
I took like $100 off of his price, and he gave me like a bunch of tools that he wasn't going to need anymore.
That's sweet. Yeah, I guess find an opportunity like that, you just take it.
Yeah, it was like a nice tile saw, some like outdoor stuff for digging trenches and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I'll definitely use some of this stuff. So that's a good opportunity to cut costs. It's like you don't need to buy stuff new, especially like so many tools. Like there's definitely, like we mentioned, some tools like your miter saw. Like that's nice to buy new and just have. It's gonna last you forever.
Yeah.
But some things, it's like you don't need a new one. Like if you're just gonna use it once a month, like it doesn't need to be super fancy. Like almost nothing that you need in this business needs to be fancy. Like it can be used and it'll work.
It can be a little beat up.
Yeah. So just look for those opportunities. Look on Facebook Marketplace. See if people you're working for. I didn't even think about that, but ever since I traded work for that shop vac, I'm like, oh, that's actually a good idea of like trading work for some tools.
Yeah.
Because then I can get them way cheaper.
Do you like the? So you gave me that shop vac because it didn't really fit in your car. Do you like the little one that I gave you?
The top falls off though. I don't really like that.
Yeah, I used to I put like some caulking around it so it would like stick better.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Wouldn't fall off so
I
easy.
do that.
But the caulking recently fell off, so.
I do like it. I mean,
I feel bad because the one you gave me is way nicer.
Oh, I don't. I felt bad for you. I'm like, man, it's so big lugging that thing around.
Oh my goodness, no way! This thing's way better than the old one.
Oh, great! I'm glad you're happy with it.
Okay.
The one you gave me was identical to the one I had before. So
yeah. No, it works great. It's just this one just seems like that a little bit more power, and it's got like really nice wheels, and I don't know. It's been really good.
I'm glad you're happy with it. I felt bad for you. I was like, man, I kind of screwed him with this.
No, I got a good deal. I thought.
What are some other things that you do to cut costs?
I mean, I don't do it, but when I worked at Home Depot, I saw some guys. I worked in the flooring department.
Yeah.
And I saw some guys, or I didn't see them, but when I went through the returns that were put back on the shelf, I noticed it. Some guys would take like bags of grout and use about half the bag and then return it half full. And the people who worked at the return desk they'll just scan anything.
They never check it.
They don't do like the slightest amount of investigating, and so that happened a lot. Like where something would just be half used, like half the product was gone, and it was just they would return it. So that's
clever.
That's one way to cut costs. I don't recommend it, but
that'll be another episode. Dishonest ways to cut costs.
Dishonest ways to do it. That was seemed to be effective because I saw a lot of that going on.
Yeah, I'm not proud of this. There was one time you mentioned you bought that carpet tool that you have. It's just sitting in a bucket because you used once. I did that once. I had a job and I had to do some carpeting, and I bought that same tool and then I returned it the same day.
Oh, really?
It's like, maybe I shouldn't do that as a general practice, but
yeah, probably not. But I've done that a couple times where I needed like a more leverage, like on a wrench, like a breaker bar or something.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the leverage I needed, so I would go to Home Depot, buy like a long iron pipe, and put it over the end of my wrench and get more leverage. And then once I was done, I just returned the pipe.
Well, that's not.
I didn't bend it or anything.
Bad.
You
Yeah,
know, it
it's
was
still
just
usable.
It's totally fine. There's almost no use to it. I just used it for an hour and brought it back.
Well,
I just rented it for free.
Really thinking outside the box, Grant.
Yeah.
I think one way I cut costs is probably my biggest way is my car. Like I drive this junky Pontiac Vibe that has 180,000 miles on it, and I just pack all my tools in there. Like I don't know how it fits everything that I put in there, and it's pretty junky. Like the suspension is completely gone,
really,
but it still runs, and I don't have to buy a truck. It saves on fuel. Like it's really efficient.
Yeah, that's true. Like having a truck, the fuel cost it's kind of a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I have an okay truck. It's not like horribly inefficient, but still, it's not as good as a smaller vehicle. So I'm sure that's a bit of a savings.
But I always think about this when it comes to the podcast too, like encouraging people to start their own business. Like you could start really small.
Mm-hmm.
Like one day I probably will get a truck. One day I probably will get at least a nicer vehicle.
Yeah.
But starting out, I couldn't afford it, and that's okay. And I was just like, I'm gonna have to make it work with this car, and I've made it work for 3 years.
Right.
And you can do that. Like, you could just make it work with what you have. I saw a guy the other day. I was driving to work, and there was a dude with a Toyota Corolla, and he had a hitch on the back and like a full-on trailer full of tools on his Toyota Corolla.
A trailer on the Corolla?
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's great.
I was like, this is my kind of man. So, be creative. You can cut costs with your vehicle for sure.
Huh.
One other thing that I've done recently to cut costs is I don't have like a paying service. Like, you can't pay me with credit cards unless you use PayPal. Like you have to use Zelle or Venmo or check or cash or whatever. But that's fine. Like, I don't need to offer credit cards. Like, I've never really had a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an expense that I don't have to pay for now. Or also, I used to spend a lot of time working up these nice like estimate documents and receipts. And for some people, they want that. Like, some people who are like my landlord clients, like, they want those because it helps them keep track of all their
Right.
expenses and for their taxes and whatnot. So for them, I'll still write those up. But I used to do that for everybody, and it was taking me like a lot of time actually to work those up.
Mm.
And then I realized, like, I don't actually need to do this. Like, I don't think people really value it that much. Like, your average homeowner, I don't think they really care if
Yeah.
I just text them the cost or if I send them a nice emailed receipt. And I find that they didn't really care. So that's one way I've saved, like, I cut costs as far as opportunity costs. It was just taking me a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned that Toyota Corolla. I loved that. But it made me reflect on my own vehicle. And I've been thinking a little bit lately about, like, scaling up my business or just how to make a little bit more money. And it made me think, at what point is my vehicle, like, too unprofessional? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to roll up to somebody's, like, really nice house and I'm charging them, like, a premium for my work and I'm driving this junker car, like, you know what I mean? It seems a little
It just doesn't
strange.
look great, I guess, but
Yeah.
it doesn't look bad.
Just feeling a little insecure about it.
Okay.
But what do you think? Like, do you think, like, if I'm going to start, say, charging a little bit more an hour, do you think that means I need to get a nicer car that, like, makes it seem like I'm more professional?
Oh, I see. I mean, I don't think you have to. I don't know. I mean, your car looks kind of, you look like a handyman, so.
Yeah, it definitely does.
It's like you got, I don't know, people see what they get. It's like, it's not that bad.
It does have its perks. Like, I was picking up some patio furniture for our new house a couple days ago, and I was just stacking all this furniture on top of the custom rack that I put on my car. And these people were like, wow, how did you do this? And then they wanted a business card, and they were like, wow, we'll have you work for us because we're moving, and then you can do some of the stuff for our sale.
See, I mean, I feel like
I was like, it was kind of an advertisement.
Yeah, you've got a lot of clients from your car, it sounds like.
Yeah, so it does have its perks. So maybe I won't change it for a while.
I get to kind of feel that same way about my car. Like, my truck is just an older truck.
Yeah.
And there's like some damage on it, on the front. It like doesn't look that great.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I was working at this house with this giant kitchen, and it's a pretty expensive place. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure my truck belongs here.
Yeah, like, I'm definitely out of place. So last thing on this topic is I wanted to mention that, like I said, when you're starting out, start small, and you don't need to worry so much about, like, being efficient and cutting costs. Like, cutting costs is important. Like, you want to be able to run your business lean and make sure you're not spending money where you don't need to or spending time when you don't need to. Like, that's good to consider. But, like, you don't need to stress about it. Like, there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years of doing this that when I started out, yeah, I wish that I had known that. I wouldn't have done it, but I'm still glad that I started.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have learned these things had I not started. And even though my business wasn't running great and I didn't learn the things I know now, I still am happy that I started it anyway. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Like a lot of it, you're just gonna have to learn from experience to see.
Yeah, like there's a few jobs where, like now I'm not gonna do those kind of jobs anymore. Like a month ago, somebody called me about fixing their dryer, and I didn't have a lot of work coming in, so I was like, yeah, I'll try it. And it took me like 2 hours trying to diagnose how to get this dryer to work, and I was pulling lint out of everywhere, and just,
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
But I was like, oh, I'll learn how to do dryers, but I don't need to do that, you know, like
Yeah.
some point, and now I've learned like some jobs just say no to, and I didn't know that at first. That sometimes you're gonna have to say no to jobs just because it's not really worth your time. But that's okay that I didn't know that. Like I know that now, but doesn't mean that was disappointed that I started my business, even though I didn't know those things. Anything else on this topic before we go to our final question segment?
No, just like something came to mind with like a job I was doing a while ago where I was trying to cut costs, and I bought one of those drywall spray cans, texture spray cans.
Yeah.
I was trying to cut costs by, instead of having to mix up like a whole batch of mud and like put it in one of those hopper things.
Yeah.
I just decided like, oh, it would be way faster if I just used one of these cans, which I had the right intentions, but those cans are
those things are
junk.
trash.
It was just, I used a whole can and I like scraped it off. It didn't work. I scraped it off and tried it again, and it still looked horrible. And eventually, I just had to scrape it all off and go, start over and get, I had to borrow your hopper, and
Oh, you ended up just starting from
I had
scratch
to just
after all
start
that?
over, and just I'm never buying one of those cans again. So like, don't like overdo it. I guess it's like some products may not actually be worth it. Like to me, it was like, oh, this totally will cut costs and like save a lot of time, but it was junk. So
Yeah.
I guess sometimes you gotta actually do your research and see if it's worth
Those
it.
things, you gotta just keep an eye out and be conscious of that. Sometimes it's
Some
not
products
gonna work out the way you think it will.
some products like just don't work. So you gotta be aware of that.
Especially that spray texture.
It was
does
so
not work.
frustrating. It was like just a piece of junk. It did not do anything it was said it was supposed to.
Yeah. All right, final question. Grant, what was your most unprofitable job you've ever done?
I mean, I've had a few, over the course of this podcast you've heard about. I mean, like making, $10, $15 an hour.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
been
like,
in the last few months even.
it's just like not great. But yeah, one comes to mind where I can't even calculate. It was barely anything how much I was making per hour on this. I was painting like some Adirondack chairs.
Yeah.
And just everything went wrong with it. First off, I didn't charge the client very much at all because like they just wanted like a quick paint job, and they're not worth that much anyway, these chairs. So like I'm not going to charge them a fortune for chairs that they could probably buy cheaper ones instead of paint.
And you're like, oh, I'll do it fast.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'll just throw some paint on there, it'll be good. And then once I get started, like they really needed to be sanded, or the paint was just not going to stick well at all. So it took a while to sand it. So it's like I'd already wasted time with the amount of sanding I had to do. And then after that, once I started painting, I like got this kind of paint that was a really quality product, but it was really hard to work with because it was like really runny.
Mm-hmm.
So I painted it. There was all these runs, and it looked horrible. So I had to re-sand it, repaint it.
Gosh,
I did this twice. Where I painted it, it started running again. I sanded it, I painted again.
Well, you had to do it again after that?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I still ran into the same issues. Eventually I got it done, but it took so long, and it was like for nothing. It was such a joke. I was like, all right, I needed to actually think through that before I said yes to
Yeah, that one you probably should have
painting
known.
it. Yeah.
Probably should have just said, yeah, you're probably better off just
I know, it's like
crashing these.
Yeah, I should have just told him to just buy new ones because it was not worth the amount of effort that I put into it.
Well, lesson learned.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the most unprofitable job I had was a couple years ago. I think I met him at Home Depot, and they asked me to do some work for them. And they wanted me to like restain their kids like playset. it was like their grandkids thing that they had in their backyard. It was made out of wood, and it was looking really bad. So like, can you just put a new coat of stain on this? And then they had these windows that were really weathered, and they had to take out the wood and replace the wood around them in the exterior. And I don't remember what I bid them for, but it was so little. And I like to be honest, so I want to stick to my bid.
Yeah.
And I made like 10 or 15 bucks an hour at the end of it, and I was just beating myself up, like, why did I say that number, or why did I say yes to this? So sometimes it happens, and you gotta just keep going.
I know, it's the thing, like, I don't really want to, like, charge them way more. It's like, all right, I gave them this number, this is on me.
Yeah. But I think it's good to be honest and have a reputation of where you're gonna stick to your word. All right, well, thank you, Grant, for episode 11. We will be back next Monday.
All right, bye.
And you got me that way, and I'm wondering if I came on too strong. Walking side by side and backwards down the stairs all alone. Can't even read or see the signs alone. Ooh, someone tell me which way.